Hi besties, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, hi, hello, my name is Emily. I love to chat about the library, plans, and other things that I'm doing, and if you're returning, welcome back. Today I have a really fun video and I'm kind of jumping on the bandwagon and doing the mid-year tag review. I've been watching so many people do these videos and I'm feeling FOMO. It seems like a lot of fun, so here we are. So the mid-year book tag has 12 prompts, or I guess 12 questions that you kind of have to answer, 12 tags, whatever you want to call it. And I will put them all in the description of this video in case you yourself would like to also answer these. So far this year, I have read 46 books, and that does not include the books that I have DNF'd. I don't personally set numeric reading goals for myself at the beginning of the year, so I have no way to tell you whether this is like on track for me, if whatever it may be, but I will tell you that I have had a fantastic reading year so far, and a lot of the books that I have read have been small but mighty. There are definitely some months where I read way more books than other months, but during those months, the books that I do read are fantastic. So this is going to be a little bit hard to do, and I'm actually looking at my story graph right now, and the moods, my top 2, 3, 4, oh my god, 5 moods of the books that I've read so far this year: dark, emotional, adventurous, mysterious, tense. So dark being number 1, I don't know what that says about me, but that's what it says. They are all fiction. I don't really read a lot of nonfiction, and my top genres so far this year: fantasy, queer, horror, romance, and then science fiction. So I don't think any of those, well, actually romance being above science fiction is surprising to me, but to be fair, I don't know if Storygraph really categorizes science fiction as science fiction or fantasy, depending on which one comes first, because sometimes it'll say like fantasy and science fiction. So is it categorized by fantasy because it comes first? I don't know, but fantasy being the number 1 genre, followed by queer and then horror, which is queer even really like a genre? I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised that fantasy and horror are my top 2. And then of the 46 books that I've read so far this year, more than half of them have been books that I've borrowed from the library. So again, that's no surprise to literally anyone. Okay, let's just get into it. So the first book, best book you've read so far this year, I would have to say Tread of Angels by Rebecca Roanhorse. And I know that this book has a lower-ish rating on Storygraph. It's like 3.4 or something like this, but this book genuinely blew me out of the water, and Rebecca Roanhorse is like one of my most favorite authors ever. I read the Black Sun trilogy. One of the best trilogies I've ever read. I mean, every single book in that trilogy was 5 stars, so I wanted to read more of her backlog. I started with Tread of Angels because it is a novella, and even though this book is like only 200 pages, it packs a huge punch. Like, it's so good. It's like still stuck with me. And I read this like, I think January or February of this year. So Tread of Angels, it just follows our main character Celeste, who is trying to prove that her sister is innocent in not killing one of these angels. They're called like Virtue, but they're basically like the ruling class, but they are essentially angels. And Celeste and her sister, I forget her sister's name, but they both are a part of the falling class. And of course the falling class is those of demon ancestry. And the way that this book shows the bias that the societal system has is just so uncanny to what ours is currently like, even though this is like purely a fantasy story. And it's kind of crazy because like the Virtues, who are the ruling class, one of their own kind, who is one of the top tier in their hierarchy, was the one who was murdered. So of course they are just going to pit any of the bad people against them, which of course is Celeste's sister. So it was just so good. And I'm gonna be so honest with you, I'm not gonna spoil the ending, but the ending is definitely what made this book, because the main character was just making so many, not bad decisions, but just so many decisions that are bad in the eyes of society. It was just so good. I may actually go and reread that book because I loved it so much. So that was the best book that I have read so far this year. Next is the best sequel I've read so far this year. So I've actually been reading a lot of standalone books. So I didn't want to like include series that, or books that were in a series but could work as a standalone, because to me those are not really like sequels. But this one might be a slight caveat, but because I didn't read too many this year, I had to just kind of pick one. So this one is actually What Feasts at Night by Kingfisher. And this book, while it can work as a standalone, I definitely think you should read the first book in this trilogy, so that way you can like really understand the world building. This world building is just so eerie and gothic, but also intertwines like humor and lightheartedness and adventure, and overall it's just so fun. Probably one of my favorite trilogies ever, especially if you like audiobooks. The audiobooks were fantastic. Highly recommend listening to it in the audio format. But I know that the author T. Kingfisher definitely writes a little bit more like gothic, but like cozy fantasy, and I would definitely say that this series goes along with it. I would recommend every single book in this series, but the first one was my favorite because it had a lot of plant horror and like animal horror in it, and that's one of like my favorite subgenres, but the second book, still amazing. Next is a new release you haven't read but want to, and for me, I'm actually going to pick a book that releases in October because I do have an arc of it. So it does release this year and I could read it, but I haven't read it yet. And that is Quaint Folk by bitter Karella. This one is a little bit more of like a queer folk horror book. And I have been very into like the horror novels that have to do with like trad wife, stay-at-home moms, like birthing horror, things like that. I don't know what it is. I feel like there's just been a lot of books that have released that this year and last year that are of that genre, and I've just been eating every single one of these up. So this is another one that is very similar to that, where the main character, Jessica, she is a stay-at-home mom and she's married to a man with a respectable job, raising a son they adore, yada yada yada. Deep down, Jessica knows that there's something wrong with her. She just knows she can't escape her past. So her husband's job takes them to a remote island. She goes along with them, right? And whenever they're there, everyone who is already living there is basically self-sustaining. They grow their own herbs, their own food, everything. And they also believe in folk tales and the power of dreams, and they say that the right family can live here. So of course, Jessica is trying to make her family the right and perfect family to be able to live on this remote island. And it feels like it will be very eerie, and I'm really, really, really excited to read it. This releases October 6th, I think, of this year, but like I said, I do have an e-arc, so I would love, love, love to get to it soon. Number 4 is the most anticipated release of this year, and for me that was Japanese Gothic by Kylie Lee Baker. Kylie Lee Baker is one of my absolute favorite horror authors. Her books are just so eerie and disturbing, and they genuinely leave you distraught and grossed out, and I love that. So this book released in April, and it was definitely one of my most anticipated releases, and it did not disappoint. This book has a lot of Japanese mythology in it, which was very interesting for me to read because I'm gonna be honest, I have not read a lot of books that have to do with like samurai and talk about the history that Japan as a country went through. So I really enjoyed, that type of like historical fiction aspect of it, but also the magic system where we follow the two main characters in completely different timelines, and there's just one door that they each have that connects their two worlds, and the way that they interact and what they go through together was just phenomenal. This is gonna be so crazy to say, but I did not realize on the cover of this book the red was blood until the end of the book. And fair warning, now you know there is a lot of blood. It's very, very, very gruesome, but it is just so, so, so good. And I did listen to this one also as an audiobook. I got an ALC from Libro FM, and let me just say, audiobook is the way to go. It was so good. Number 5, biggest disappointment of this year so far. For me, this is actually going to be Ocean's Echo by Everina Maxwell, and that's so sad to say because I loved Winter's Orbit. That book was so good. I mean, I just really liked it, and I was really excited to continue on in the series. And this one could work as a standalone. Winter's Orbit, you don't have to read this. You don't have to read Ocean's Echo if you don't read Winter's Orbit, but they are in the same world. That being said, they have completely different magic systems. The only thing that is the same about them is the political system. And I will say that like the magic system of Winter's Orbit was one of my favorite things about it. I didn't know that going into Ocean's Echo. The main character is placed under the care of like this off-duty soldier almost, because he's just been making all of these terrible decisions, and he's basically a nepo baby, and the aunt runs the military and is like, I'm fucking fed up with you, so you're now going to be a babysat. And we do have 2 different POVs, so it's the main character Tennel, and then the other one whose name I cannot remember, but the soldier. He thinks that, this is like all fine and dandy, and Tennel is there not against his will, because the soldier is able to influence minds, and the way that they have been put together is because Tenel is able to read minds. So they want them to like work together, I assume for some political reason. I didn't get that far. The one thing that I'm realizing about the telekinesis type of like magic system is that it doesn't feel like there's very much consent between people who have telekinetic powers, and I don't like that. I don't like that at all. So I did DNF this book, and this was probably one of my most disappointing. This was actually my most disappointing read so far this year. That's why I chose it for this one. But yeah, that's sad. Anyways, the next book is the biggest surprise of this year, and that actually is The Poet Empress. I was not expecting to like this book as much as I did. This book was phenomenal. It was very, very, very dark. It's not a romantasy. I've seen it marketed as a romantasy online. It is not a romantasy. And I'm actually looking at the description on Storygraph right now. I did not realize that the author, Shen Tao, this was their debut book. That's crazy. That's crazy. This book is compared to The Serpent and the Wings of Night, which is a heavy romantasy book. Again, this is not romantasy. The Song of Achilles? Not at all. She Who Became the Sun? Maybe. Because it's very dark. That might, maybe. I mean, if you like high political fantasy, but I wouldn't even say that this has like high political fantasy. It's more of magic system that serves the political class, but it's not so much like a political historical fiction, political heavy historical fiction book like She Who Became the Sun. Anyways, I don't think any of these three books really accurately describe this book in any way. So that being said, the main character Wei has offered herself to be the concubine for the upcoming prince. She's from a very poor village, and she wants to be able to help her village and help her family, and specifically her little brother who wants to go to school. And the prince who she is going to be a concubine for, he is like known for being so ruthless, and his magical powers have to deal with metal and swords. So you can imagine someone who's like pretty fucked up in the head, how cruel they could be for having that type of magical powers. But the one thing about this book that I was not expecting was how lyrical the storytelling was. So we follow Wei as she is talking to all these people in the palace and in the kingdom, trying to understand how her prince has come to be the way that he is. And so we're learning like all of his backstory through secondhand tellings. She's putting all of these stories together and figuring this out and yada yada whatever. And the ending, I don't think it could have ended in any ending. I just got chills thinking about the ending. It couldn't have ended any other way than it did. But wow, it was so heartbreaking, and this made me hate a character and love them also so much and feel so bad for them, but also hate them so much. The more that I felt bad for them, the more I hated them. And the visceral reaction of like how I felt for how he was treating Wei during like their duration of their relationship. But then I also like cared for him. It was, I don't know what to say. It was surprising. It was the most surprising read that I've read all year. It was very, very, very good. Next is New Fictional Crush, and I actually don't have anyone for this prompt because like we were going through my Storygraph earlier, I read a lot of really dark, gritty things, and I don't really have a crush on any of them. And even like the romantasy books and the romantasy and like, yeah, the fantasy and the romance books that I have read so far this year none of them really stood out to me. So thus far, no new fictional crush. But that might change by the end of the year. Kind of hoping it will, actually. Next is my new favorite character, and that is actually going to be the main character from Honeysuckle by Bar Friedman-Tell. And I received an audiobook of this, an arc of this. This book is a horror book that came out, and wow, this book was so good. So this book follows a very lonely boy, Roy, who kind of bothers his sister so much, and his sister has this magical power where she's able to make something out of nothing, and so she makes him a friend based on the season, and every season they have to like remake this girl that she has created, like a friend for him, and in return Roy will leave his sister the fuck alone. So they have created this girl, Day, and I say girl very loosely because she is created just from like sticks and twigs and pine cones and leaves and flowers and all of the things that you would assume or that you would come to expect with each season. So she looks different each season, and it was very unique how like she was, you know, put together and described. But she actually is my favorite character that I've read so far this year because I think that this book just handled confinement so well, handled loneliness so well, handled coming into your own, and realizing that everything that you thought is wrong, and how even though you are made to believe that you were made for a man, you are your own person, and men will drop you for literally anything. So yeah, her entire story, her entire character arc in this book has been my favorite that I've read so far this year, and her like own self-discovery and self-acceptance and self-love, and you know, her freeing herself from her shackles was just fantastic to read. I really, really, really enjoyed this book. Next is a book that made you cry. This is actually going to be I Love You, Don't Die by Jade Song. And I'm not going to tell you why, because that would spoil the book. The title, I Love You, Don't Die, should probably give it away a little bit. So yeah, that made me cry. I don't cry very often, but this one did make me cry. Next is a book that made you happy. This is actually gonna be Dragon Fruit, and this was one of the most lighthearted books that I've read so far this year. And this is a standalone fantasy book that is based on Pacific Islander mythology. And wow, it was so good. It was just so fun to read. This is a dragon fantasy where we follow our main character who has been, well, her father did something bad, and then they had to flee. So she thinks she's been in exile from her people since forever, and so she's like doing anything she can to scrape by. And eventually she ends up with these pirates who are, you know, hunting dragon fruit, which is like an egg that a dragon can lay, and it has like a special color and opacity to it and whatnot, so that way you know like it's this special magical fruit, right? And then she finds herself back on the island where her family was from. So she's, you know, coming to terms with a lot of things that happened whenever she was a child. She's making amends with a lot of people. She's realizing a lot of things that she was told or at least thought are not true. Throughout all of this, she's also learning more about herself and her own powers. And it was just a very fun read. And I know that probably sounds like it was a pretty heavy book, but this is a YA fantasy book, and it actually was like a perfect YA fantasy book. Very short, but I don't feel like there were any plot holes or it was like missing anything. And I think because it was so well written and it was like pretty concise and short, like it was just very, very fun to read. And the last prompt, what books do you still need to read? I only have one book for this prompt, but it is Dawn of the North by Demi Winters. And I'm actually so sad that I haven't read this book yet, because I read the first two books in this series, like devoured them. That is a romantasy series. That is a good fucking romantasy series. The books are kind of long, but this is a Viking fantasy, and those are usually pretty hit or miss for me. Gonna be so honest, them fucking after not having showered or bathed in days is kind of like really icky to me. So it takes me out of the story a lot, actually. But that didn't really happen in this book. So I think that's why I liked it so much, because I didn't have to like come to terms with like the lack of hygiene, if that makes sense. Anyways, this is the third installment in the series. There was a novella. I can't remember what it's called. I actually don't think I've read that novella in between book 2 and 3 yet. So I also have to read that one, but specifically I really want to read Dawn of the North. And I did receive an arc of it. I just never got around to it, because I think I want to reread the first 2 books and then just get right into the third book, because it's been a little bit since I did read books 1 and 2. So I actually couldn't tell you what they're about, but I remember loving them and like losing sleep so I could finish these books. Like that's how good they were. And if you know me, you know how much I love to sleep. So that is actually saying a lot. But yeah, if you like Viking inspired fantasy, maybe check this out. This is one of my most anticipated reads for myself for this year. I have no reason why I haven't read it, other than I just haven't read it yet. Anyways, that is all of the prompts that I have to answer here for this mid-year book tag. This was actually a lot of fun. I really liked reminiscing of the books that I've read so far this year, what I liked, what I didn't like about them. And I'm not gonna lie, I have been having to look at my phone to like reread the synopsis before I like tell you what each book is about, because my brain, it just doesn't retain that information like that. Like once I start reading it, I'm like, oh yeah, that's what happened. But I can't remember, like I've read almost 50 books so far this year. I can't remember every single one that I have read and like the nitty-gritty details about it. So anyways, oh wait, I'm actually looking at here and I just realized that I forgot number 7, which is favorite new author, debut or to you. So I'm not done. Okay, so my favorite author this year is Stephen Graham Jones. The first book that I read by him this year was The Only Good Indians, and wow, this book was just so good. And the book that I read actually is one of his like lowest rated books, so that's surprising to me, and I'm really excited to get more into his backlog. And I also have one friend in my in-person book club who loves him. and me and her have very similar tastes, and she was giving me some book recommendations, and I don't think I'm gonna read his book. I can't remember what it's called, but it is like his most highly rated book, and I was like, I don't think I'm gonna read that because I don't want to like start at like his bottom books and then go all the way up and then have like the in between. So I think I'm gonna like work my way up. And actually, so I have you guys on my TBR cart right now, so you're like, so I can sit in this chair, and in front of me is The Angel of the Indian Lake, and I think that one is actually in a series. I could be wrong, but the bookseller who I got it from, I got it at like Blythe Books, which is a secondhand bookstore. That's where I got The Only Good Indians, and she was like, oh, there's another book by him if you like want to get that one as well. She's like, I don't think it's the first in the series. I was like, that's okay, girl, I'll just put it in the bag, right? So I don't know what the first book is, but I think that series is going to be the next one that I read of his. And I just really love horror. I really love horror. I've been reading a lot of indigenous horror lately, and especially this year I'm making an effort to read more of it because I realized that there were kind of some things in The Only Good Indians that I didn't quite understand, and I think that was just a lack of knowledge on my end and a lack of like understanding of their culture, of Native American culture. So yeah, I'm hoping to learn a little bit more through fiction and especially through horror, because I think folktales like that can tell a lot about a culture. So yeah, Stephen Graham Jones is one of my favorite authors so far this year. So now I'm done. Anyways, this was fun. If you guys want to make your own video using these prompts, like I said, they're gonna be in the description down below. But I have new videos coming every Saturday morning. If that's something that you're interested in, make sure to subscribe. And I live, laugh, love the library, and I live, laugh, love you all. I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!